Hello and welcome to another Beyond All Reason replay analysis. My name is Zateo, and today we're going to be looking at VioletHawk as our light screen player. Let's get into it. So I took a few notes on this. Looks like the focus that you want me to go over is mainly what to do when you are the air player facing off against two players, and other just general macro micro type stuff. So that air parts we'll get into a little bit later, but for now let's just look at your opening, see how it's done. This looks good so far. That wind's quite nice, so yeah, some more winds. Let's speed up a little bit. Okay, so you get some winds, get in your lab. I'm mainly going to be looking at just your player view. Once in a while I'll try to remember to go to your camera to see how you're looking or where you're looking at and stuff. Because it is very important for the air player to be very aware of what's going on the map and respond to any air threats with your own fighters. Alright, so lab's done, you get a solar. Okay, wind's low, so yeah, that solar is a good idea. Another solar. Personally on this map I like to just open some solar since the wind can get so low. But yeah, if the wind is super good, then yeah, opening wind is fine. Concert going down. This feels a bit early for this concert. Okay, so you realize that and start another solar because yeah, you don't have a ton of energy for it, and you're grabbing your other stuff here, so that's all good. You decide not to build the solar, get some more wind instead because wind starts rising. This feels a little uncertain. In my opinion, it's a little bit better to just kind of like stick to something because then you're not wasting time half building something. Yeah, wind is super low, so that's quite rough. Yeah, I mean, you could consider a third solar or something, but yeah. Alright, so now you're starting to grab your last max. You're adding on some more solar. Alright, sorry, not solar, winds. And being more importance here. Because 16 wind is quite nice. It's just when it gets, you know, like 5 or below, it starts getting a little rough. Okay, a couple of converters. Not a bad idea considering wind can be quite nice and you're probably going to be overbuilding winds. The other thing that you can do instead is get a storage. But yeah, this is not bad. Just to have a couple on this map. Not bad. Alright, so you're eating your lab, you're getting your air plants. All looks pretty good so far, honestly. This is pretty solid. Good opener. Let's see, adding on some fighters initially. Looks like your ally got a little bit of scouting. This is actually some nice damage, it looks like. I'm just gonna ignore that because, yeah, we're gonna focus on you mostly. I just want to look at what the front is doing and how well they're doing. Because, you know, air player or not, you're still you're still a backline player, and you want to respond and know what's going on. So you just want to look around and see what's up. Your energy is getting a bit low. You are adding on 3 turbines at a time, and when it gets low, you are adding on some additional ones with your commander. So that's actually really good. Even adding on a solar here. At a certain point, you could consider an advanced solar instead of some basic ones. They're going to be more efficient in terms of the the metal cost of it. But given the situation with it that low, you do want basic over advanced because they do cost a lot of energy. So not a bad choice by any means. Alright, so here it looks like, yeah, you're just mostly producing fighters and shurikens. Which is not a bad choice. This is what you want to do. But I will say, by this time, you probably should have already built some scouts. This is actually a very, very important thing as the air player that a lot of lower end players just don't do or forget or whatever. But get a couple of finches. Your Cortex, so they're finches. Just scout. The way I like to do it is I'll get like on a map like this, I'll get like say like 6 finches. Make a line of them like across this whole section here, like place one here, one here, one here. Just like spread out like that, and then just send all of them at once forward. By just drawing a secondary line back here, and then you see as much information as you can And if they get shot down, you might miss some information or something, but you want to be aware of what you see, um, and where the anti-air is, where they get shot down. You want to be, if some of your finches get to the back line here, you want to start like, say like one over here, gets here, you want to maybe move it around to like, try to scout out the back line of any position that you weren't able to see with a different finch. And then after if you can try to get them like back to base to like, just hang out so that you can scout later on, or you can choose to like hang out in the area and just like kind of roam around and just continue scouting. Personally, I like to send them back, but honestly, a lot of players do not build anti-air just for a scout, so it's just some additional information. Um, Also, that'll alert all the enemy players as aircraft detected, which means that they won't get that alert later. So you're kind of just giving it to them now instead of later, and then when you do a bombing run or something like that, they don't get that notification. Um, when it is important. Um, and on a map like this, you can expect a player to go air, so there's no real sense in hiding the fact that you're going air, because somebody, in your position, you go air, so it's pretty much like baked into this map at this point. But yeah, you got some shurikens going on, which is great. You're going to be able to catch leaks if you're quick about it. Yeah, so let's see what else you got going on. Okay, so metal's looking okay. Energy's, you're doing a good job with your building up your metal and your energy here. All right, eating some solar since you don't really need them anymore. Yeah, I would say you could maybe add this on a little bit sooner, but like this is pretty good. This kind of feels like a lot of converters, but wind is okay. Like the max is 16, which is okay. So having a few additional ones is okay too. For converters. Um, Personally, I don't really like to get too many converters in this situation, but like it's really not that bad. I mean it's not bad to do that. All right, so you just got T2. Let's look at the chat. Did you pay for it? You said you paid for it. Yeah, so you paid that much to teal. Got your thing. You're sharing a unit to green. Probably a transport, right? I'm not sure if you give teal one as well, but oh yeah, teal's got one here, or I should just draw. So teal's got one here, green's got one over here. Yeah, so quite nice of you to provide that. That is definitely helpful. All right, so you got your constructor out, getting your mechs, and you got a transport. Nice. So this is a weird time, I think, for an air player, because you don't necessarily know if the enemy is going to try to bomb you or do something at this point in terms of air. You don't know if you need to necessarily continue building fighters. But I would say if you feel, if you do this often enough and you get a sense of it, you can figure out, like, I don't think that my opponents are going to do a lot of bombing like immediately in the near future. And you can actually pause your air plants so that more of the metal that you have coming in goes to the extractor, and that'll just help this get up faster since you are out of metal. And your energy is a little bit low, but that's mainly because the wind is just so low right now. So now you're continuing on with fighters. So right here, I see a lot of idleness, and I don't know if that means that you are trying to prioritize building fighters since you slowed it down for a minute. Building that mechs. Yeah, that's what you're doing. But yeah, I mean, to me, ideally, what you want to do here is as soon as you get your T2, build like 3 mexes immediately. Like, put as much build power on building that as you can. Like, grab this one, grab grab this one immediately. You know, turn this off so that you put more metal into that, and then once those are done, get a fusion. And then after that fusion's done, get your fighters. I mean, basically, it's a little bit of a rearrangement so that you get the economy going a little bit faster, so that you get you can potentially build fighters and stuff or a lot faster. So a little bit of rearranging there, I think, would help a lot. And then yeah, you could also start eating your solar and stuff. But yeah, obviously your energy's quite low, so you know I can understand wanting to keep those around for a minute. But yeah, you got a nice little, you know, you got some air going on, but you're also focused on economy. Shurikens are doing some work, actually catching some stuff out here. My apologies if I missed some of the other Shuriken business. I'm, you know, was focusing so much on the economy. But yeah, nice job catching those and helping out with that. I just don't know if you had done it before that or not. But yeah, let's continue on. All right, awesome. This is really good. You're doing a little bit of micro with your builder to get this going sooner. Ideally, these guys would automatically be guarding this guy so that they're already moving to help out with this mechs. And given winds, I mean, wind right now is high, so like you're actually using like most of it, or you're using all of it. But what I mean is, you don't really need the fusion quite yet, with it being so high. But if it does dip, like it's gonna hurt. So I mean, I can understand going for a fourth. You could maybe even go for a fifth mechs or upgraded mechs. But yeah, ultimately, especially as air, you're gonna want a lot of energy. So I'd prioritize that fusion maybe a little bit sooner. So you're cranking out a lot of T1 fighters, a lot of shurikens. 3-to-1 ratio, that looks pretty good to me too. Yeah, just kind of doing the air thing, upgrading some mechs. Yeah, once in a while. Okay, so here you decide to put this on pause. Okay, that's cool. You put on pause, you're getting a little bit of energy. Is this when you get your fusion? Okay, awesome. Really nice. I'd say so far, like, reasonably timed considering, you know, what you're doing. I would say, you know, you had a couple of idle guys here and there, so I would try to clean that up. So to expand on that further, what you can do, I don't know if you know this or not, I'm sure you. Oh, okay, so you do know you can guard. Okay, so you know, just assist guard, or you know, guarding a constructor will help it, will assist it in its building. So just try to do that more often, type of thing. And you know, don't be afraid to queue stuff up. Like queuing is your best friend in this game. You know, what I try to do is like, so as soon as I get my T2 constructor, right? You know, I'll you know, say, hey, build the first mechs, you know, and just start queuing up the other mechs that I want, and then queue up the fusion and stuff. And if I have time to, you know, I can stop that queue, or you know, I can kind of manually assist it to go faster. For example, like, you know, you know, say this mech is like 99 or say 95% done. You know, then I can tell my T2 constructor to start this one. You know, so he starts walking. You know, and then you got your guys that are guarding it that'll finish the first mechs, and then automatically move on to helping with the second mechs. And then, for example, if something happens and like, you know, I need to respawn with my shuriken somewhere, you know, if I'm unable to manually assist, you know, then he will automatically do it because it's queued up. You know, I'll just lose that tiny little bit of time. You know, since these two mexes are so close together, the time is, you know, the time you lose is very minimal anyways. But like, even if it's further away, it's just nice to have that queue going. Not that you did like an awful job with moving him around or anything. I just thought I'd let you know. And also just with the, you know, the idle guys, could have been on guard or something. You know, try to set long queues with them too. And at the end of the queue, you know, like even if you, like, for example, like you told them to assist this Max. Afterwards, you can hold shift and tell them to guard the T2 constructor so that they automatically move on. And I think that's a really good habit, to just like, like say your commander needed to build like, I don't know, say there's a raid over here and you're kind of worried about it, so you place down like, a light laser tower there and one there, and then afterwards you hold shift and then tell them to guard either a factory or a builder that has a long queue, and then that way as soon as they're done they automatically just go assist. So the idea is to just add at the end of anything, like, by the way, when you're done with this, I want you to go help out with this thing. And then you won't have that idle time, or you'll be able to cut it down significantly. Okay, so you do produce some finches. Are they called finches? I just know them as scouts. There's the names. Otherwise, yeah, finch. Okay, so you got some finch, but you scout with it. Okay, so you send it in, sort of send it back. Like, can I even click on this thing? Okay, there we go. I was trying to click on it that whole time. Alright, so here you go, sending it in. How far do you get? So you don't get very far. Okay, so I think you understand to scout with the finch and stuff. I would recommend just doing it with more of them. Like it's nice to try to scout, but try to scout more of the map or more things. I mean, just because this guy has anti-air over here doesn't mean that his neighbor has anti-air here, which means maybe instead your finch gets like this far and then say like dies to a tower there. That's not an X. Alright. We can draw, we can do this, I swear. So say there's an anti-air there instead, and he just like dies here, which is fine. Then you can have like another finch go in and go around this way instead, or you can go around this way. So it's sort of like you want to try, you want to dodge the anti-air. But to me, it's ultra important to try to get some information. And as the air player, you have a lot more option with that. And yes, the scouts dive super quickly, but like, the more you can get in there, the better. Or you can do what I was saying before and like line up a bunch of finches and then just send them in. At least then you know where the anti-air is immediately, in that particular lane. And then, when you scout a little bit later on, you know where to dodge. So say you scouted with that line I was talking about, and the anti-air is where these X's are. So like you send your first one on this left side just like dies right here. Your other one you're sending this way, it dies around here. Another one goes up here, also dies around here. And this one dies over there, and yada yada. So now the second time you do it, now you know where the anti-air is, and you can try to like swerve around it, type of thing. I hope my drawing makes sense. To me it's just a lot of scribble, but yeah, just like trying to look around, and obviously this one would just die here and stuff, but the more information you can gather, and the more often you can gather it, the better. You get that information, and you know what the players are doing. And that kind of ties into your main question, I think, which is what to do when you are 2v1 on air. First and foremost, you want to know that you're 2v1 on air. So once you know that's going on, you can alert your team and say like, hey, there's 2 players going air, get some static anti-air for yourself. I can't handle everything, type of thing. Because you never know when they're going to come in, right? Once you know that they're there, you don't, you can maybe get a sense of the numbers of what they have, but you don't know when they're going to attack. And if they're going to attack like right away, then your allies need anti-air right away. But if they don't attack right away, then it's better to delay that anti-air until they do attack. So it's like you don't necessarily know, but like, if you scout and get some sense of the numbers of what they have, you can tell your team you can, you know, respond a little bit better just from having that information. So to me, that is the critical thing that so far is missing. You tried to scout, but it didn't get very far, and it was only one finch. Whereas it could have gotten, you know, could have zigzagged around, you know, like you could send another one, zigzag around a bit, type of thing. Yeah, right here, nice job with the shurikens again. Helping your buddy out. It's quite unfortunate. So on this map, you know, there's a very clear, like, this is the midpoint, right? Like, you know, basically the midpoint is like here, right? Um, is it there? Well, I mean, arguably it's I don't know, it's like this, right? And that's where your team wants to draw the line. And I think this is very important for any game, but just to mention this because I hope that's um, yeah, I can tell already that your team's not doing very well, and so that gets a little rough. So I wanted to just point this out a little bit, because the fact that they're all the way back here, you know, means the enemy, even though that they're stationed like all the way the heck up. Or I guess I drew this poorly. Like, so your allies here, but then there's this big dip in the middle here, and there's all these 3.2 mexes on this map. Oh, I see. Somebody lost a T2 lab there and lost that. That's unfortunate. Like, losing a T2 lab that far forward is pretty rough. Anyone that may be listening that puts T2 labs that far up, I would say don't. Because it is extremely risky. It's nice to have up there because, you know, the units just come in that much faster, but like, man, if you lose it, it really sucks. And I would say, like, if you're gonna do it, only ever do it if your allies next to you are also up there. So like, this guy here is up there, this guy's is up there, and blue's not quite up there, but like, yeah, this feels safer because of that. But I wanted to point out, like, if the allies were, say, like, pushed all the way back here and back here, putting this lab here is completely unsafe. Just thought I'd mention that. I don't really know what happens here, but yeah, clearly it died, so that's really rough for purple and your team, because it does create this big gap here. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I feel like they could potentially fight over these 3.2s a bit more, is I guess what I'm getting at. Anyways, let's go back to you. In fact, let's go to your player camera. Take a look. Okay, so you're getting an Aphis. Your metal is getting pretty high. Actually, let's turn this off for half a second. Looks like you did check though, so that's good. Alright, so you're building this Aphis. Your metal's starting to climb a bit. It looks like you took off production from your T1 lab to get it faster, which is good. I'm glad you're thinking about things like that. And you even, okay, so you're also getting your converters to go with the fusion. I missed it a little bit. I wish I could back up a little bit. I'm not going to restart the whole replay for this, but one of the things I noticed when I was watching this before was that your metal started climbing quite a bit with all these T2 mexes, and your construction turrets were a bit late. So your metal, you know, kept climbing. You know, which isn't bad. It's just right now you could have some extra fighters, or if you were saving up for things like this fusion and this advanced fusion, like, you could put on more turrets and stuff like that. You know, just to produce it faster, type of thing. And if you run out of metal or something like that, you could eat the T1 lab as well. But since you're quite good on metal right now, like, it's fine. One thing I'll note is this is going to get very crowded here too. So, you know, obviously you have, you know, the mountain here, and you have the mountain here. You know, so like well, it doesn't really dip up like that. It, you know, it's more like that, obviously. But yeah, your building space is very limited here. So it's a little tricky to SimCity, like, trying to get your eco going and all that. And I think it causes you a few issues later on. So I want to talk about the SimCity of it a little bit, and just maybe make some suggestions so that you don't feel so cramped in this tiny little spot here. Um, yeah. So initially, I think these were your first three construction turrets, which is a fine placement. Which I will say is a fine placement because they can reach, well, two of them anyway, can reach this T2 max. So that's pretty reasonably placed because you want to upgrade that as soon as possible with your construction turrets. Um, but I would say your following turrets could be more on this side of things. Because you really only need it for this advanced extractor. But if you start building your new ones on, say, like you made like a block here, you could plan, or at least plan to put your block there, and then when you put your fusion down, put it like, say, like over here instead, and your converters over here, and your APHIS here. I'll put like, I guess, an A, and then an F, C. Not that you can really read that, but yeah. So yeah, just I guess what I'm trying to say is like if you like it's good that you started that way with where your turrets are, but if you slid the other stuff over a little bit, then all of a sudden you have more space in this area. Um, I'll talk about it a little bit more in detail when it becomes more of an issue, because right now it's not causing an issue. But I think a little bit of planning can go a long way in terms of base layout. Um, uh, Player view came off. Let's see, let's put on line of sight again. Okay, cool. All right, so if it's going up, and you're actually draining so slowly. So you are draining. So like in some sense, it's like you don't really want some more construction turrets, right? Because you are actually draining it. But in another sense, right after this is done, you're going to be building some converters anyways to get even more metal income. In which case, you're going to want some construction turrets after that. So what I would actually say is, since your metal is so high, it's good that you're draining it, but you could actually drain it quicker, knowing that you're going to be using that build power afterwards because of the extra metal from the converters. So yeah, totally fine to get some more construction turrets here. And it's starting to, yeah, even with right now, it's starting to feel a little boxed in with all these wins, and then you got your lab here. But yeah, ideally, you want a bit more build power to build this faster. And then if you do run out of metal, you can eat your lab, eat this solar, and things like that. And eat this other solar, because these are going to be in the way anyways. Yeah, just trying to get, it's just small optimizations to get the APHIS a little bit faster. And, base layout, if you were able to slide these over, you know, just a little bit so that they're here, and your APHIS and stuff is over here, or started over here, that would be ideal. And then as you need it, you can build your turrets out this way. I hope that makes sense. Like, so if you have your construction turrets here, you can add on more, moving on up, so that becomes a block like that. And you got your APHIS and converters and stuff over here. And then on this side, you can have your air labs and stuff. Obviously, this max gets in the way a little bit. You could potentially. Yeah, I'm gonna pause it in case I probably missed some stuff because I kept going, but potentially you could maybe plan it so that you can fit a lab here, and then turrets next to it, type of thing. And it's I'm not someone that plays all like super neat like that, but I think it is a good next step, especially when you're kind of crowded in this mountain area. Um, so yeah, something to keep in mind, something I would suggest. Anyways, so we got a bunch of fighters out. You're still on C1 fighters, which is fine. Yeah, small bits of fighting here and there. The rest of the map, nothing crazy going on. All right, so now you're getting your T2 lab, which I would say this is a fine time for it. There hasn't been any crazy air raids or anything. Your air player or air opponents is not super aggressive or anything like that. They might be saving up a bunch of bombers or something, or just stockpiling fighters like you are and ecoing up. Um, Again, scouting would help you figure that out. So yeah, again, I would suggest sending scouts in periodically. Um, but yeah, now that you're basically on T2 tech, you can do condors instead, and they have an even bigger radar and line of sight and stuff, so they can see a lot more, and they can take some hits from like T1 anti-air, but not much from T2. But yeah, they have a higher chance of seeing more. Um, so yeah, here's where it starts to get a little bad in terms of positioning. And I wouldn't say like it's awful yet, but if this was positioned on the other side, you'd just have more space for construction turrets around here. Because air labs can handle a lot of construction turrets. So yeah, your APHIS is done. You get your converters. Your conversion seems good. You're not overdoing it or anything like that. It's like a good amounts, 2 for the fusion and 4 for the APHIS. So this looks spot on. As an air player, since you do use more energy, you could consider just doing 3. But right now, I think you're mostly well, I suppose if you do 4, it's sort of like, it just goes below the bar and then you just don't use one of the converters, but you could get away with 3 if you're producing T2 aircraft, because they are very, very energy expensive. So yeah, here you're using 87% of your converters, or 80% of the energy is being converted into, or your converters are working at 87%, I should say. But yeah, so sorry, in a second. APHIS. So yeah, at this point you definitely need more build power. Your metal's full on, like full up. More build power would let you get some more aircraft sooner and stuff like that. Um, I mean, and as it is right now, like you were just like trickling some metal to your teammates, and your teammates could use it, so it's fine. Ideally though, if you are going to be a full bar of metal, it's better to give all the metal to one player instead of like putting the metal where it's needed, instead of giving a little bit, little tiny trickle to everybody. If you gave a nice lump sum to somebody, it would help out a lot. In terms of that, you could look for a player that's like, um, like not doing so well in lane. Like Blue isn't doing terribly well. Like ideally, he should own his 3.2 mechs. Purple got hit earlier and lost that lab. Maybe he could use it. Or you could just look for like, okay, who's the best player on the team? Like, okay, Blue, he's 23. Let's give it to him. He'll have a higher chance of using it correctly. Um, as it is, Blue's kind of, he has some metal and he's actually low on energy. So I would consider, or I would take that into account and not give it to him in this particular case. I mean, I'd work down the line and say like, okay, Green, Green's got his, some nice economy going. He's the eco player, so. But that doesn't mean you can't use it. Like he could just build these T3s, or a couple of T3s a little faster or something like that. Um, but yeah, you could potentially give it off to somebody if you're not using it. But yeah, more ideal would be to, for you, if you're worried about 2 players or whatever, you can build more con turrets, and you want to just build as many con turrets around your T2 lab as you can. You want to fill it up basically, um, because as it is, air players, um, or air plants can produce very, um, like they, or how do I say this? The aircraft, like okay, so the reason why you'd maybe want a second lab, instead of just adding build power to it first, is because um, of the time it takes for the unit, like the unit, gets produced, and then it has time for it to leave the lab before the lab starts producing a second unit. So there's all this time, while the turrets are doing nothing essentially. When it comes to air plants, they actually can produce very quickly, like more than one, like 1 point some, aircraft a second, if you have enough turrets and money to spend on it. Um, so one lab can actually hold a lot. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here. I should probably just talk about this more when it comes up. And we'll talk about the space and stuff at the same time. Alright, so Red's doing a good job with stopping this as well. Um, yeah. Yeah, at this point, like 20 minutes in, you haven't been able to scout this entire region, and that's very, very not great. You're starting to see some fighters, looks like you spawn very, very quickly, so that's very important for air. Um, Pull back a little bit and you go forward. Nice little, actually, I don't know if you intended to do that. I don't know if you even, if people watching like even noticed it, but like, so purple's or pink's aircraft, like he had a ball that kind of just moved down here, right? And intentional or not, you have some aircraft over here and some aircraft over here, and you kind of pinched it. You kind of like came in from the side and stuff, or actually this one didn't really come in from that angle. It's more like from down here to clean it up, and that was really good. So aircraft attack in front of them. Whatever's behind them, they can't hit. So you want as many of your aircraft to attack the side of their aircraft. So when they have a ball like that, it's really nice to come in from the side. Say the ball's here, come in from the side to attack it, or from behind it. And a lot of your fighters will attack, a lot of theirs will not. So I don't know if that was intentional by you or not, but like that was really good. And that's why the numbers look so different now. He definitely had more fighters, but now you just won very convincingly. I guess on the same sense, like I don't know how many T1 fighters or T2 stuff it was, but it looks like these are all T1s. So like, well, I guess a couple of T2s. Either way, nice little engagement there. Second eighth is almost done. Dude, your metal is super high. Okay, so now you're adding on some more turrets. So that could have just been a bit sooner, so that you can spend more of this faster. Let's see, allies we can push back a bit. Tan's trying to come up. Some nice little back micro here from your front players. Alright, so here you produce a second air lab. So this is what I was saying before, is you don't really need this yet. Do not get this yet. You could instead just keep adding on more construction turrets, because this isn't quite fast enough. So you're actually like basically you've been limited on build power. And a lab does add 200 build power, but you're also spending a lot for that lab, right? Whoops. Or that's not an aircon. Where's your? Oh, here it is. So yeah, air lab 3200 metal for 200 build power, whereas a turret is 200 build power and it's only 210 metal. So you get the same build power by building turrets, and a lot of people know that. But you don't really need a second lab quite yet. You could definitely afford to spend more of it on one lab. And the reason is, it goes back to what I was saying before with like the only reason why you even need a second lab is because it's being held up by how fast the unit exits the factory, preventing the factory from building. So that'd be like if these con turrets like kept stopping because this lab, like if they stopped like for a fairly long time, or not fairly long time, but like long enough that you would want them on a second lab. Basically, you can afford maybe, I don't know, like a dozen more turrets on one lab, if you're just doing fighters. If you're doing something more expensive, you could afford to do a lot more turrets than that. But yeah. Because yeah, if you look at this, like it produces here, and then it produces there, and then it produces here, and if they all just were on one lab, it would be like the same amount of time. So it doesn't actually do much here. And then even I'm not. Well, okay. I think this is one of the things you mentioned. You wanted to do Armada so could do stilettos for EMP. So this is actually, this looks not great to have 4 labs, but like, at the same time, like this is an ARM lab, so I get what you're doing here. You want those EMPs. This guy looks like he might get boxed in. Yeah, also right now, it might be a fine time to maybe select like, a couple or 4 of these construction turrets. Hit E. Actually, let me see if I can just like show it. I gotta actually take off the player view so I can actually show you this, but yeah, so you hit E and then you hold Alt. And I don't know if you know this or not, but in case you don't, you hold Alt, and if you do something like this, sorry for the weird graphical error with my reclaim, but that's just how it is. I don't know if this happens to anybody else, but like it's kind of weird, it's kind of wild. But yeah, anyways, you box, or you hold, or let me do this again. So you hold, or you hit E, hold Alt, and hover over the thing you want to reclaim, and then you can reclaim just that unit type. So doing it like this would reclaim all these wind turbines within this circle. So it's a nice like easy way to just like have all these reclaimed. Um, and you can do it in chunks like that. But yeah, just so they're not in the way and you can keep building your stuff out, because these wind turbines at this point don't really do much. Um, at this point, I believe, well, it's 12 average. Actually, let me just like, I'm gonna actually alt tab for a second. Look at this thing just so I don't say it incorrectly. But yeah, as long as when wind is around 12, it's basically equivalent to an advanced fusion in terms of metal cost. Obviously, you'd have to build like you'd have to build like this many wind turbines or more, to equal it out. But yeah, it's fine to hold on to them, but the thing is they're just kind of getting in the way, is my point. Uh, yeah, it looks like you're kind of doing a normal thing of having a box of turrets this way. You have your fusions going up this way and your converters going up this way, and your converters are going up that way. Uh, the only thing is you cram a bunch of these um, labs here that first of all you don't really need yet, but secondly, once you do need them, ideally you want to put, like, say if you just had one, you could put turrets all around here. Let me clear this. So instead of these 2 labs here, you put turrets in this area to support this lab. And then if you want a second lab, um, I mean, I guess, I don't know, you could leave space for a second lab. I just, like putting a 3rd lab there, it's kind of a lot. Um, and yeah, ideally, it gets weird with air because the units exit the factory so quickly that you can put a lots of concerts on it, basically, is what I'm getting at. And so you can reserve a lot more of the space for concerts to support this lab. And just have like, I mean, you could reserve this space for another lab later, type of thing. And then maybe put your Armada lab like over here instead, and get rid of these wind turbines. Because you don't really want like a ton of build power on this lab, right? So you can just put it wherever, as long as there's enough build power to just crank out that builder really quickly, I suppose. Anyways, I've said a lot about that. I hope that makes sense. Trying to get better at being more concise and summing up my videos a lot more instead of having them drag on as much as they do. Any feedback would be welcome, by the way. So yeah, the sounds of T3. Or actually, it's not T3, it's Arbiters, isn't it? But yeah, T3 is also out now. I thought I was hearing Shivas, but yeah, I was hearing Arbiters. Yeah, red comes in once again. This is actually, I want to point this out because this is really good by red. And blue should, yeah, he needs to move out of T1. But yeah, since red knows that blue is parked over here, or over here, Red's just like, well, I'm not gonna, you know, why even attack his army? I'm just gonna go like elsewhere. You know, so this is really strong by Red to just like do attacks like this. Now, obviously, because of your play, because of the shurikens, like this doesn't work out, and it's actually not good to do because this is all free metal that's gonna go down here. Um, kind of showing him a lot of your fighters. I don't know if that's necessary. Like these fighters could be patrolling, you know, around there or whatever in case there's an air attack. Because right now, basically what's happening is, you know, Red is doing, you know, these plays of like, you know, sending guys around, right, and doing these like raids with them. You know, and I was just saying it's like a pretty reasonable thing to do. But at the same time, none of your fighters are going to do anything to this, right? So you don't really need your fighters there. You can send some in case they, you know, try to take out your shurikens or something. But ultimately, you're being pulled away from defending anything. Like, so all your anti-air is right here right now, and it would be fairly easy for, especially since there isn't much radar coverage. Like the radar coverage goes like out to here. It's like not that far. So it would not be hard for, say, like a bombing run to just come down this way and then all of a sudden destroy this player or destroy your eco player or anything like that, because all your fighters are on this side over here. Obviously bombers are quite slow, and you know, it seems like your response time is pretty fast, so maybe you would be able to get over there to defend. But yeah, since they're not doing anything here, it just seems kind of risky or unnecessary. Alright, so good. Your metal's finally spent. You got a lot of labs. Okay, so you got your T2 Armada for your stilettos. There they start. Okay, your fighters are still coming out. Okay, so you're producing T1 fighters and shurikens, and okay. I want to see what this Finch does. Looks like you got a couple. So it says stiletto. To me, the stiletto looks a lot like the sonar plane, the Oracle. So I get confused sometimes, but yeah. Let's see, you got a Finch, you got some more stilettos coming out. You find some more. I think you have more than one Finch. Where are they? Did I double click? Oh, it's because I'm on your view. I hate that about replays. Alright, so now that I have it on everybody, should find. Okay, it did find. Okay, so you have 4 now. Player view, will that get rid of my selection? No. Okay, cool. Oh, and here comes here comes the big events, eh? So here comes fighters. Here comes the bombers behind it, which this feels. Okay, these are not bombers, but yeah, these are radar. I was gonna say, like, that's a weird bomber pattern. So I don't quite know the. I mean, obviously I'm looking at it now, and the icon looks like radar, but yeah, they just look different. So I was like, oh, is it a bomber? Anyways, you see yellow air here. I mean, I don't know if you're zoomed out at this exact moment, but like you see some yellow air. You just saw a ton of pink air, so you know that you're up against 2 at this point. Which, you know, 26 minutes in, if they've been building that much air up, you should have essentially known sooner by scouting. So again, it goes back to that, trying to get in there with those Finches. Which, by the way, gosh, I clicked off your Finches like a fool. I don't know if I... Shoot, I must have missed it. Yeah, I wanted to see where your Finches went. Oh, here's one. Again, I gotta turn off player view to Okay, so you have 2 here, or somebody has another one somewhere. Let's go down here so that it's... Okay, it must be 2 of yours, right? And I gotta put this back. Gosh, this replay system. Alright, so you go up there with your guys to look around a little bit. So I feel like you just scouted with your fighters. or you're trying to like take out more of his fighters that he pulled back by doing that. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's fine. Personally, I would maybe consider scouting first, like looking around first. Oh shit. I assume you didn't see this, but like this would be a big catch. Just a lot of instructors there. But yeah, it seems like your scouts are mainly just kind of roaming around back here, so they're not really doing much. Yeah, you got one. You got one over here, and you got one over here. I'll just highlight that area because that's where. Okay, so here's the big bombing run. So I guess the first wave was just a scout wave. So they send their fighters in, they take a look around, they let their scouts get in because you're dealing with the fighters, not the scouts, because that's the threat, right? So the scouts see a little bit more because they're defendant, uh, the anti-air is going to focus on the fighters instead. And they got some information, and now they have decided that it's a good time to attack with bombers and all these fighters and stuff like that. They're two players going air. That's a lot of air. Um, so again, ideally scouting that very good. But yeah, looking at this, it's like holy cow! You got all these bombers over here. There's quite a few. There's all these bombers from pink as well over here, and there's just like this mass amount of fighters from yellow. And I think you killed a lot of the pink ones, but like there's still some here from him too. And you basically just match pink. Barely. I mean, maybe not even really matching him, but like slightly less than pink. Um, so yeah, this right here, this is basically like this should just kill you guys unless there's a lot of static. Looks like there is some flax here, long range stuff. Okay, so this guy's got plenty of anti-air, which I would not suggest getting this much unless you know that you're up against two air players like that. I don't know if you got that after seeing, two colors of air or not, but it is a lot otherwise. Um, Here we see none. And I don't know if they've scouted that or not. Looks like that is where pink is going. They're both kind of focusing on the side. You move over here to the fence. Alright. Well, and there's even more bombers back here. Jeez. So yeah, I just want to look at this closely. Okay, so a lot of the there's some anti here from Teal, so that's very nice. Teal doing a solid there. Okay, so they're going straight for this Aphis over here. These all died. This Aphis is donezo. This guy's dead. And there's a bit of a chain here. Yeah, and there goes the converter. Okay. What about these other bombers? These mostly get shot down. Okay. So all in all, like considering like, what just happened here, there was like a ton of bombers coming down this way. There's a ton of bombers coming down this way, and then there's this huge wall of fighters, and you got this like little thing here, right? So that's scary. That's like, what do you even frickin' do here? And that's I think a really good question to have for if you're the air player, because typically there is only one. But I would say ideally, this is definitely about scouting. It's about knowing that there's two. And luckily, I don't know if your allies knew this or not. If they knew that there was two at that point and just added on anti-air. But luckily, your allies have a lot of anti-air themselves. One of the things that you can do potentially, if you're worried about it, like say you have an ally that doesn't build anti-air, well, you can send a builder out here. Say take a transport, take your T2 builder, and then maybe follow them with some either T1 air cons, or you could transport some of your consorts around too if you'd like. But yeah, get some build power out here. Build some anti-air if they don't have it. Obviously this guy had it, so I probably shouldn't be drawing it there. Let's say draw put some here and here. But yeah, there's just a lot of stuff to cover. One of the other things that you can do is just like take a look at what anti-air is available. It's going to be extremely hard to do this in the moment, so try to plan this ahead of time if you can, um, because this guy here is the guy that got bombs. He's also the guy that had a lot of anti-air in front of him, you know, type of thing. So it's just rough coming in from the side because there's, when they come in from the side like that, it's hard to get enough anti-air along just this area here. Obviously there's a bit more anti-air here, but yeah. So my point is, or what I'm trying to say is, even though this guy had anti-air, and even though you know he was good, like he's the one that got bombs, and in a way you might have been able to figure out, like, okay, where are the enemy bombers coming from? Because the fighters are not priority, right? Like the priority is the bombers. So you want to position your fighters up to meet the bombers and away from their fighters, ideally. Now, obviously, you're in overwhelming odds, so like there really wasn't much you could do. But potentially, you could move your fighters to this side to respond to that bombing threat. Um, but yeah, if you plan ahead of time, you can know, like, okay, this ally has more anti-air. He should be a little bit better than, say, like over here. Um, uh, um, and that might have been the case, but at the same time, it's sort of like, well, maybe there's extra bombers on this side, so maybe there is more reason for you to send even more anti-air support up here. Um, yeah, what I'm getting at is trying to figure out where you're needed the most. What is the absolute priority? Um, and I don't know if and I'm not trying to say you didn't do that or anything like that. I just don't know what's going through your head, so like I'm just trying to point these things out. Because I feel like you sent your fighters in this way, and there's a bunch of fighters you fought here. I didn't really pay too much attention to that, but like, um, I don't know. It just feels like maybe there was something else you could have done there. Catch my breath a little bit. What am I saying? Or what am I moving on to it? I should say. Um, but yeah, all in all, given that whole circumstance, like this player lost a lot of like wins and stuff, and some turrets, but not all their turrets. They're kind of okay. This player lost a lot, but like, I don't know. He's still got. Well, that's not his. He still has some T2 mexes. I guess he lost all of his power. You could potentially give him your fusion, because that's not doing as much for you anymore. Don't be afraid to share a energy building with an ally if they really need it. But yeah, going back to your whole, like, your whole base. Um, so to help with that situation as well, you could have had more fighters and stuff if you didn't produce so many different labs, or so many labs in general, because you have 3 T2 labs. This is a T2 Armada, and these are T2 um, Cortex, and you have a T1 Armada and T1 Cortex. Um, I mean, yeah, it's kind of nice to have these fighters around, these T1 fighters, because they can just absorb shots and shit. Um, it's kind of better just to have like overall fighters in general. I don't know if I would really recommend doing as many T2 fighters. Um, just because they basically like especially the Armada T2 fighter is not great. It's kind of better just to get the T1 fighter. But basically just too many labs. Like if you just produced less units, or produced less labs, you'd have more units, and you'd be able to defend that a little bit better. And then combined with being able to scout it and see what's coming, maybe another player would also go air at that point, or maybe more players would add on anti-air, sort of thing. But again, like, it wasn't too bad. The main thing to me is just everybody's pushed back. This whole like no fighting zone, no combat zone is kind of interesting to me. Because normally there should be like a push and pull on each lane, a push and pull. push and pull here. Like once somebody gets kind of ransacked, like there should be a big push or something. Um, but yeah, I obviously I'm paying attention to you, so I don't really know what happens, but it just seems really far back, and because everybody is so far back, um, there's all this metal in the middle that is on your side, your team side, that is not being processed, and so everybody's a little bit further behind because of that. Which means your tech's a little bit behind, your unit count's a little bit behind, your T3's behind, your anti-air's behind, like just everything's behind. And now you're up against a forest where everybody is ahead, and that's not great. If it was just one lane that was behind, it'd be much more okay than everybody being behind. um, yeah. I suppose we can continue on. Rambled enough. um, yeah, I talked about the SimCity quite a bit, but like, yeah, more con turrets, less labs. I'm still on slow mode. 8. Uh, already this replay is going much longer than I anticipated. That's alright. Speed up some more. Alright, so you're recovering your anti-air and all of that. Scouting here, also very important. Like, so you saw 2 players go air, but you don't necessarily know if they're continuing to go air. Because they like, at this point, like, they might not go air at all. Like, both players could stop going air. You just don't know. Um, I would assume one player would continue going air just to have anti-air, to have the fighter support. So it looks like, so yeah, Pink is their main air player. This guy, wow, he's got all these labs. Oh, but they're all paused. All right, so he's going tier 3, so he's not even going bombers anymore. That was like the big hurrah of bombers. Let me tech switch into something else. And if you were to scout, I mean, obviously hard to scout. At this point, like, there's going to be anti-air, or there should be anti-air somewhere. Um, I don't really see any anti-air, so you could definitely scout. Uh, yeah, just not seeing any anti-air except for the fighters. So obviously the fighters would, you'd have to contest the fighters a little bit. At this point, it's hard to get a Finch or get whatever those other guys are called. Uh, what are they called? No, this one. Condors. Yes, Condors. Blinks for Armada and Oracle. So yeah, it'd be hard to get Condors and Finches and scouts in there. You'd kind of need to build up your fighters first and then send them in to scout, but definitely very, very important. At the same time, there's other utility things you could be doing. You don't necessarily, like, to me this is like the base build of being the air player. You basically, you get your mechs quickly with your cons, and then you get your air lab and start producing fighters, and then you scale up your economy one way or another into T2 and get your fusions and stuff, and then you get T2 lab and just scale air, and it's air all the time from then on. And you get an anti nuke here, when necessary and stuff like that. But what you can do is, don't think of it as this is the air player. I mean, you are the air player, and you need to do things like build fighters to defend and stuff. That's very important in this position. It's very assumed that you're the air player in this position, so it's obviously you want to do that, but that doesn't mean you can't do other things as well. For example, well, so I guess let me put it this way. So as a backliner in general, for any of these backliners, what you want to do is just take a look at what is needed. What does the battlefield need? What would help your team win? And it's gonna take some time to figure that out. That definitely, like, you need a lot of games to like figure out um, all the problems on the map. Uh, but one of the problems that I see is a lack, like, so you weren't able to scout, and that just means there's a lack of information back here, and obviously it's going to be very difficult to scout at this point. But one of the things that you can do to help yourself out, especially since none of these players have built a T3 radar, I don't think. Uh, Gosh, where even is a radar? I think they're just using mobile radar at this point, which is it's pretty typical to just use mobile radar. But the thing is, the T3 radar can see much further. Uh, so like, let's see, where's that radar bot over here? Am I blind or what? What's going on here? It's got to be a radar to make this little radar hump. It's got to be. Well, what the heck? Oh, here they are. I'm just blind. My apologies. So this T2 radar is basically, or this T2 mobile radar is basically a T1 radar on wheels. It has very slightly more radar coverage than T1 radar, and that puts it out to here. But if you had a T3 in the same spot as one of these, it would go like out to here or something like that. In fact, why don't we check? I don't know how close I really am to where it actually would be. I just need a T2 builder. Where's your T2 builder? All right, here we go. We can do this. All right, so if we put one over there, I'm not, it's not as far as I had thought, but like, a bit more coverage. Um, so say you did put it out here to where my line is. Let's take off your player view. You'd see some fighters. Okay, so you wouldn't even see a lot of the fighters, which is unfortunate because your team's pushed so far back that you can't even see where the fighter line is. Um, but ideally, you'd be able to get a sense of how many fighters there are because you'd see them roaming around, or at least some of them roaming around. And then you know like how deep you need to go into anti-air coverage in terms of your own fighters. Um, but yeah, you can do certain things like add on radar to help get some more information. You can do things like building a Juno, which is a utility building that a lot of people forget about in lower tiers. But basically, it's like a nuclear missile that, I mean, I don't know if you know this or not, but it's basically like a nuclear missile where you manually fire it. Like basically you build it, it charges up, like it spends a little bit of energy and stuff to build a missile, and it stockpiles them. And once it has a stock of, or it has a stock, or it has a missile loaded, you can manually select it to fire, and Junos can actually hit anywhere on the map at this moment. So um, you can build it as far away from everything as you want, but what it does is it takes out the enemy radar, the enemy jammers, the enemy ticks, the enemy scouts, um, and it's just like a nice utility building to have as a team. And it doesn't necessarily, like, front players might find those useful, but might not think about building it because they're so locked into fighting and stuff like that. So you could build a Juno just to help out and kill. I don't even know if there's jammers and stuff by the enemy team. Looks like there is jammers. You can assume that they have jammers slash radar, especially at this point. Put your view back on. So yeah, you only see the buildings out here, which means most of this is probably jammed. If it wasn't jammed, you'd see this, right? You'd see dots. So yeah, all this entire area could be Junoed, type of thing, to actually see what's there. Um, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so you can do other utility stuff like pinpointers, or yeah, pinpointers. Pinpointers are often forgot about. They're team wide. Essentially they make the radar wobble. They minimize it. So instead of having a unit dots wobble all over the place, each pinpointer makes it more and more and more stationary. So it helps out utility or helps out artillery and things with long range to be able to like home in on that target a lot better. Um, but yeah, you want like up to 3 pinpointers. Like beyond three, it's like it's so the wobble's so little that it doesn't really make too much more sense to get more pinpointers. Um, so I'd say up to three, and I would say also say that it's team wide. So if you see another player have a pinpointer, you know that you need to build one less or something like that. But ideally, as a team, you get 3 pinpointers, and you could be that utility player that helps out with that if you'd like. That would just help out with artillery shots and stuff. Um, if your team was dealing with ghosts, you could get this countermeasure for people. Basically, don't be afraid to assist an ally with a little bit of anti whatever they're dealing with. You want to look at what is that player dealing with and help them out if you're trying to do that. That's like in a way, that's what backline players should do is just like figure that out and try to respond and make a good decision about helping them out. Um, Otherwise, you could do other forms of you can defense or build units and attack or whatever. Um, you have access to Armada and Cortex, so you can do you can either do tactical missile launchers or you could do the EMP one. Um, um, the EMP one being like the stiletto but a bigger range and everything. I'm sure you know all this already. I don't know. I'm just blabbering on. But yeah, I mean, I guess my point is there's other things that you could build besides strictly air. Um, and granted, this particular game, you saw a lot of air. You're worried that they're going to do another bombing run. I can totally get that. Um, but any chance your team or you get to do a little scouting to see what you're actually whoa, that was weird. What you're Oh, it's because I have that selected. What you're actually up against in terms of fighters, I think would help out a lot. Um, this is like a reasonable amount of fighters, so like that's going to deny most information, right? Um, what you could also do, if you can't get in there with scouts to get some information, you could build a T2 lab, bot lab that is, um, just to produce a few ghosts or specters. I forget which one's Armada and which one's Cortex. The player selection thing. Okay, so let's select this. All right, so Spectre is the Cortex one. But these radar invisible spy bots, they do not show up on radar and they're invisible. They cost a bit of energy per second to keep their cloak, but basically, you know, you can try to weave one into an enemy base or just get information. Obviously, this is a very passive game. There's a lot of enemy units just kind of like stacked, oof, just kind of stacked everywhere. So it would be very very difficult to get in looking at this position. But ideally, um, as players are, generally to me this is a lower level thing where you see a lot of people just kind of stacking up like this. But as you move up in rank or start fighting some more aggressive players, there will be more holes. It won't be just full of units all the way down. And you should be able to sneak in a ghost or a specter. The only hole that I'm seeing is like, in fact, there really is 0 holes, so I guess never mind. I was thinking there was going to be at least 1 hole. But let's say that these walls weren't here. It's funny that this little bit of wall is actually the one thing that prevents a ghost. Um, but yeah, I like say those weren't there. You could just sneak in a ghost up here, into the enemy base and see stuff. Wow, they actually have a tracer too. It's actually pretty rare that I see even higher level players build a tracer unless they've already like figured out that there's ghosts. That's actually probably gonna change. There's probably gonna be more tracers coming on, because ghost inspectors are a big part of the play in upper levels. Uh, but yeah, just you can sneak one in, get some information basically. or try to. They're not very expensive, I should say. In fact, why don't we select one? Or yeah. So it's only 165 metal, and obviously you'd have to build a lab, which is a lot more. But like, you could produce like say like a handful of specters and just sell the lab again. And then that money could be spent on more fighters or something. But yeah, that's just another scouting thing you can do to get some information. But yeah, ideally making informed decisions so that you can better your team in the long run. Um, and yeah, I know I am trailing on a bit. I notice that as I go with videos, like I tend to like just ramble on. Like I put more and more and more and more detail into something, and that's while that's good, it's sort of like after a while it's just like it's a lot of information. It's maybe I start to repeat myself and shit. So like yeah, I know it's not great. I'm trying to be more concise. Uh, so hopefully you're still watching and getting the information from this. I'll speed up a bit. So yeah, it looks like at this point you're just producing a ton of fighters. You got your anti-nuke, you got 3 APHIS. Not much else going on though. Lots and lots and lots of fighters. Nothing but fighters. Fighters, fighters, fighters. If you want fighters, we got fighters. Okay, now you're getting some constructors. You saw shurikens coming out? Oh. Where the heck are they? Teams starting to do some push in, getting pushed back. My computer's starting to lag a little bit with the increased speed. Okay, even more build turrets. Yeah, I would say all this could actually be spent on like 2 labs at most. Like maybe even just 1 lab. Obviously, yeah, again, you have additional labs because you want the EMPs, but yeah, you just don't need that many, and you definitely do not need a 4th T2. Fighter swarm. Let's go. Alright, so is that your bomber? Yeah. Yeah, I'd actually say at this point, like, against spam, like, you could potentially get, like, I don't know. I mean, this is just me thinking about plays, but, like, if you got some shurikens, you could just park him out over here and deal with the spam, and then Blue just doesn't even have to worry about them reaching his units, and the friendly fire and all that goes along with that. Okay, a bit more of an air battle as your green player pushes in. Pull out. Okay, you guys get a lab, so that's nice. You got some nice air support with that. I'm glad to see you like pushing in with your allies a bit here and there. Nice little takedown there, fusion, or advanced fusion, as you should say. Yeah, I don't know if you're noticing these bits of like it says +7, 1767 M. So I have a widget. I forget what it's called, but there's a certain widget. But there's a widget, you can find it in the widgets channel. But basically, it shows the like every time there's a battle in an area, it figures out like um, what the score is, like how, like in terms of metal. This is metal, M for metal. Um, like the gain and loss. So your team, this is green, and it's plus, so it's, and I have you selected, so it's your team basically took out, um, or I should say the yield of the battle in terms of losses is your team is up 1,767. Like you took out that much more metal of their units than they took out of yours. Um, if your team lost more, it would be red and it would be negative. And that just means the other team took out that much more. But that it actually is kind of cool and shows you some stats so you can like get an idea of stuff. I have some like weird widgets on. I just thought I'd mention since you probably see some of the stuffs. Alright, so Teal's doing this nice push. T1 spam. Yeah, you're just taking these little bits of raids out. And unfortunately, blue is kind of pushed back here. I mean, the bulls are good, but it gets a little troubling with Mausers because their firing arc is only in front of them. So they can't fire behind them, so like anytime they turn around, they're not shooting. And it gets a little rough. And he's moving in a little too much. Yeah. See how's everybody else doing? To me, Teal's doing like the smartest thing. Like spam is quite nice at this point in the game. Like spam, first of all, is a scouting tool to get, you know, line of sight on units for backline units to attack. But also, like as you move up in the tech tree, like it gets kind of hard for, you know, to deal with spam. Essentially, there's just so many T1 units that it becomes tricky. But yeah, you moved into your fighters again. I guess this is that 20. It slows down so much, so many units. Big push. Are you adding on any more fusions? No. So it looks like you got some. Okay, so I would not recommend stacking your anti-air like this. I would recommend like spreading it out. Maybe even you can even put one on, you know, some stuff on the hill here or on the mountain. You know, but ideally spread it out so it covers more area. And at the same time, these flaks. I guess I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure all these will fire on one aircraft. And basically overkill it instead of spreading it out across like however many aircraft there are. Now obviously the splash will, you know, hit other aircraft around it, but if the enemy isn't stacked up, then it's not necessarily the best thing. I would spread it out and maybe try to cover some allies too if you can, type of thing. So yeah, your fighters just flying around. I would be careful with this. Because yeah, if you fly over their anti-air like that, then obviously like you're just gonna lose a chunk of fighters like you did there. Here it comes. Oh, nope, he's just pulling in and out. Well, at this point, this game has gotten quite a bit more aggressive. At this point, I think you're still worried about the fact that you saw two air players. I mean, you're actually not too far off of where pink is, so I mean, you're basically, I think. I mean, I guess I'm kind of assuming I don't really see it, but oh, okay, so he has a lot of fighters. Holy cow! He's got a nice spread too. But yeah, it's all just fighters, so I mean, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Obviously, you don't know that, but yeah, I think it's a good call that you're pointing that out to your teammates. Oh, so many. I feel like yours is a little too stacked up there, but... And they all just run into the anti-air. That's so funny. They like swarm the anti-air. Yeah. I mean, I don't even know if he had any bombs with that. I didn't see any. I mean, there's so many aircraft. It's hard to know, but didn't look like he had like a big bombing run in mind. So I don't really know why he would do that. Huh, unfortunately a lot of those did not attack. I assume you know how to do like, you know, like bomb with them with the I gotta take it off the view again to select. Okay, where are your stilettos? Let's see, do you have any left? Oof. Okay, so green is building some anti-air here for allies and stuff. There's your Nighthawks. Gosh, are they all gone at this point? Oh my god. Well, I guess I'll just wait a second. Basically, what I'm saying is I assume that you know how to do bombing lines. You know, you select a bomber. You can do this with any unit, but you hit A, and then you know draw a line with right click, essentially. You draw a line with right click, and you know, make little red dots of this is where they're bombing. So that, you know, bombers will do like, you know, their first hit here, first hit here, first hit here, you know, like that. Another bomber will come in, you know, do a line like that, you know, etc., etc. And this just makes a nice, like, you know, this whole entire area is dead now. So yeah, it's just a way to spread it out so that you can hit more area. And I assume you know that. Again, if you don't know, it's just you select your bombers, you hit A, and then with that A, you can either do a left drag, and they'll make like a circle, or you can do a right drag, and they'll make a line. And the line is better because with the circle, say you're bombing stuff here, a circle will hit, like all your bombers will target the first unit until it's dead, and then it'll target the next unit, and then the next unit, and then the next one. So it does it like in order, whereas, you know, generally you have enough bombers. Like if you're trying to carpet an area, you know, you do the line so that you can, like, say, carpet this area. Obviously, in this case, there's an aphis right here, and you want to just, you know, click on the aphis and get them all to bomb the aphis. But I'm just thinking in terms of you can do the same thing with the EMP bombers to spread it out so that they hit more units. So potentially right here, you know, I think you had some guys going around and bomb this, and then later this got bombed, you know, as a whole. And I think he just kind of dropped it in the middle. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, ideally, you know, you'd set, you know, you'd draw that line, say like up to here, around here, because an EMP that drops here will still affect stuff like that. So like it'll affect a lot of these units. Again, I don't know if you did that or not. I just thought I'd mention it in case you don't. But yeah, Lag City. I'm gonna go back to your view where there's less clutter on the minimap. But yeah, it seems like you guys are pretty much dead at this point. And I again want to point out that I think a lot of that doesn't necessarily have to do with you. I think Blue could have done more in that situation. He I felt like you got kind of stuck on T1. Not that I was watching them all that closely. Um, Obviously, your allies over here got bombed and stuff, and that was, unfortunate because there's 2 players doing the bombing run. It was just necessary for you to get the scouting information on that to deal with that better. Same thing with like APHIS and stuff. It's hard to know when to build an APHIS over getting fighters and stuff like that. So, if you can, try to scout. That'll at least give you some information to work with instead of nothing. Um, it's not going to be a lot of information because there will probably be fighters out and stuff already, but yeah, something is better than nothing. At least knowing how many fighters they have will maybe help you make a decision like that. And then yeah, there's just little things like your SimCity. If you move your stuff over a little bit, you could fit more build power around one or two aircraft plants instead of so many. And yeah, just having 1 or 2 aircraft plants instead of 6 at this point, I think would be a lot better. Yeah, I think that pretty much wraps it up. I hope you got something out of this video. I know it's kind of going long. I hope you're still with me to get this summation. It's a big explosion. And I hope it helped. And if it didn't, let me know. I'll try to talk about it a little bit in less detail and more succinctly. But if you have any specific questions, let me know. Thanks for watching.